All right, welcome to All In with Allie. Today, I am so excited because I have somebody on here that I've been following for years. And I've always admired because I admire people who hone in on one thing and like go super, super deep and stay there, right? It's not like they're an expert for a little bit on something and then they bounce to something else. You are this person, and I love following you because you are the period and fertility expert, and you are just like your content, everything you put out is so on point, and I am just pumped to have you here because we have so many questions around cycle syncing and our hormones and all of the things. So welcome to the podcast, Berrion Berry.
Thanks. I am like trying to be chill right now, but it is such an honor to be here. And I can't wait for our conversation to pour into the community. And this is literally like on my like list of podcasts to be on. So I'm stoked.
Yes. Okay, good. Because you were on my list too. Like, and we talked about this before we started recording. She was like, I've been following you for years. I was like, I've been following you for years. What are you talking about? Yeah. So I really appreciate you doing this because this is obviously everybody who, I mean, I assume 99.999% of people who listen to this are women. A lot of them are moms. And most of them are business owners or aspiring business owners, or maybe they do a little bit of both. And our hormones and our periods are a very large part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. So this is something that affects us all in one way, shape, or form. And this is something that I cannot talk about because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So this is where I go find the expert. And here she is. By the way, her name is Berrion Berry. But Berry Berry. And I just think that's the coolest thing. So
I feel like I finally grew into my government name. I tell people like I finally grew into the Berrion because I'll be 30 next year. But I still just prefer the Berry because I just feel like it's just kind of cute and fun. So
it's so cute. It's so fun. Berrion's hot too, though.
Yeah, but it's like grown, you know? And like sometimes I don't want that like grown lady energy. Sometimes I want like the fun, like flirty energy, not the...
That's how I feel too about Allison.
Yeah.
So whenever I was picking out my brand name, I was like, Allie Reeves, that sounds good together. It's, Allison Reeves is just more of a mouthful. Plus Allison, like when I hear Allison, I immediately hear my parents because they both called me Allison and then like Chris never calls me Allison. So I had to change my name on Instagram to Allison so that I could get verified. And now, like, when some people message me, they're like, hey, Allison. I'm like, oh, God, don't call me that. It's way too grown. And I'm 35 years old. Like, we're both grown, but like, it's too much.
You're fully in like that womanhood, and I'm still like, I feel like 30 is that benchmarker of like, I am a woman now. And so I'm slowly approaching it. And I feel like that has just changed so much about how I do what I do and why I do what I do now. So I get it.
So how do you do, or how did you get into, take us on the journey of how you came to be the expert on periods and fertility and all of the things that you now help women with?
Yeah, I really wish I could say this is what the life path was for me. I really wish I could be that
God
person.
just came down and was like, Berry, periods.
So, at an early age, I had always wanted to be a pediatrician. And then when I was 10 years old, my dad passed away from cancer, and he was misdiagnosed. They told him he had a pinched nerve for literally my entire life. It was a tumor. So in that moment, my dad got a diagnosis in March and passed away in June. So it was very quick. But in that moment, I remember being like, I cannot trust the medical system. Something is off. So I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be everybody's pain in the butt. And then I was like, there's got to be another way to change laws around medicine specifically, because I had a really great relationship with my dad growing up, and it just rocked me to my core that the people who were supposed to help him and heal him didn't know what they were talking about. But at a young age, you don't understand all of the like red tape and the nuances. So as I'm getting ready to go to college, I need to declare a major. So I picked political science, figure I'll do a concentration in international studies and women's rights. Fine, no big deal. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I needed to do something because my mom was like, you're not going to be undecided. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I get to college and I'm like, oh, I should go into politics. I should be a diplomat. That way I can work in women's health and women's rights and really make an impact. Long story short, got my degrees, ended up going into corporate America. The first time around, working for Volkswagen Group of America in litigation, of all things. And it's because I speak German too. But about 6 months in, nah, I knew I wasn't going to stay in corporate. And one of the things people kept saying to me while I worked corporate was, how are you in such good shape? Why do you eat the way that you do? How are you so healthy? I'm 23 at the time. What do you mean, how am I so? I'm 23. Like, what do you expect? Like, yeah. Okay. But I started looking around and noticing like I was in the best shape, but I was also a collegiate athlete. I was also really interested in holistic health and wellness. So it all kind of just came together indirectly right out of college. And I guess somewhere along the way, I came across YouTubers and I was like, if these girls can make money online, I can do it too. And I can talk about health, something that matters. Like I can really make this impact. And I quit my corporate job after a year. Worst thing to do. Best decision I ever made because it was just me. I didn't have any other responsibilities. It was just like me taking care of me. After a year of struggling with online coaching and blogging, I got very humbled and went back to corporate America just for COVID to happen and to find out that I was non-essential. Now, the second time I was in corporate, I was really there with a plan to leave, and I had understood the online coaching space more. I knew I wanted to stay in the health space. I knew I wanted to online coach, but you know how they always say, like, you need to have like a why or a problem you solve or something. I mean, you are the coach, right? So, like, and I'm like, what's my story? Like, I've always been in a good state of health. Like, I don't have this like crazy, like weight loss transformation or anything like that to share. And then I was interviewing someone for my podcast and she was like, periods aren't supposed to be painful. What? Ma'am, hold on. What do you mean? I had never heard that. And by that time, I had had a period for like 12 years. I did not believe her. And from that moment forward, I have done everything under the sun to learn about menstrual cycles, to get more educated in terms of certifications, from being an integrative health practitioner to being a fertility awareness educator to, personal training and nutrition. And it all just kind of came together without me necessarily knowing, but following those breadcrumbs. And here we are several years later, almost completely full circle, focused on women's health and women's rights, but concentrated on periods, PMS, and really fertility altogether. So
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And so when there was that moment where the person on your podcast was like, periods aren't supposed to be painful, were yours painful? And you were like, wait a second. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I had the most, like, if your period was your lover, what would it say about your relationship? That's one of my favorite questions to ask people, because we have relationships with everything in our life. And my relationship with my period was so toxic. I was like, Mia, why are you here? And it's so crazy because I hated my period so much. I hated the pain, the inconvenience of having to like change a pad or a tampon. And when I was growing up, like we were also very irregular. Like my relationship with my period was so complicated because I mean, I would have a period, it would be there consistently for like 4 months and then it would disappear because my cortisol levels were so high. I was an elite athlete in high school and then I went on to be a collegiate athlete and I got on birth control. So then I started feeling out of control of my body. So it's like one thing after another, but I didn't know any of this. If I knew then what I know now, there's no way I would have ever got on birth control. There's no way my period would have been painful. There's no way I would have actually worked out and trained the way that I did. Mm-hmm. Now, when I'm like looking back at like my old accomplishments, when I'm having like a bad day, I can literally look at a race and be like, I was ovulating. I can tell by the way that my skin looks. I can tell by the running form. Like I know to the T, but you know, my mom, she had painful periods. My grandma had painful periods. Every day my grandma calls me and she's like, I saw your little Instagram live and you did such a great job. Grandma, why do you have an Instagram? Like you are 80 years old. What are you doing?
She's so cool. I love that.
My brother's fiance did it and it's like a whole thing. And I'm just like, because now she knows every single thing and wants every photo. But yeah, I had the worst relationship and now it brings me the most joy. Like my period's supposed to start probably a day or two. Mm-hmm. And I'm just chilling. Like, yeah, this feels good to slow down.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So much to unpack there. And I'm so sorry to hear about what happened to your dad. And what you said brought up some thoughts that go through my mind, not just about periods and women's health, but just health in general. And people, I mean, it's mostly the people that do, you know, create our products like birth control, tampons, you know, like there are some things that they put in our products that make zero sense. And it's like, who can you trust, right? Like, yeah. Why do we have fragrances in tampons and pads? Please, why? There are things like when they put food coloring in infant Tylenol. For infants. Why are we doing that? They're infants. Mm-hmm. We know that food coloring is not good for our kids. There are things like that drive me insane, and I get conspiratorial really quick.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, yes, I will be on the podcast. We are on the same wavelength with so many things.
I mean, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's things, and I get it. Like the people that make the products, their job is to be profitable, and I get that. But anyway, I'm just thankful that you followed this journey and you trusted, because I feel like the way that you kind of flowed into your business is very similar to how I flowed into mine. I never knew that this is something that I was going to be doing. It was just really following those breadcrumbs. And now in hindsight, I'm like, oh gosh, I was always meant to do this. This is, like, of course I would end up here. And it seems like, I mean, for how passionate you are about what you do and how amazing of a job you do it and how often you show up and the level of content that you make, you're living your passion as well, or at least part of it. So I appreciate you doing that. So where should we begin? Because we have so many places to go, from cycle syncing to optimizing our energy, to talking about painful periods, supplements. Where do you want to start?
I want to start where I know everybody needs help.
Okay.
Which is understanding the phases of the menstrual cycle. And the reason I want to start here is because it's really not that deep. Everybody, I feel like at this point, so many women have read the book In the Flow, and that's a good book, but it almost overcomplicates living in sync with your cycle. And, cycle syncing is a very specific framework that you can follow. But if you are an entrepreneur, a mom, whatever it is you do in life, I almost feel like the way that I teach it is a little bit easier to digest. So I want to start there so that people can have peace. And then, we can talk about your energy. We can talk about how the brain changes throughout the cycle, because a lot of y'all think y'all are hormonal. And it's like, yeah, that's how you're supposed to be. And also, here's how we're going to move through these things. Is that okay?
Please. That's perfect. And yeah, dumb it down, spell it out, because I'm going to be real with you. I had to look up the 4 phases of our cycles, and I've read books on this. So yeah, just break it all down for us.
Yeah. So I always say, look at the menstrual cycle as if it is a blueprint. The first phase is menstruation. This is when you're on your period. I don't need to tell you this. You know that. But also, this is when your energy levels are the lowest. Essentially, estrogen is at its lowest, so your energy levels are at their lowest. And as we talk about this, just remember, as estrogen rises, your energy rises. As estrogen plummets, your energy plummets. Think of it like that.
Okay.
The second phase of your cycle is called the follicular phase. So this is post-period, but pre-ovulation. And this is when your hormone levels are beginning to rise and your energy levels are beginning to rise. The third phase, the most important phase, the only phase that truly matters, ovulation. Okay. You ovulate for 16 to 32 hours max. And if you're like, girl, what is ovulation? I need to really ask you a few questions, but this is where babies come from. This is our fertile phase. This is when our energy levels are essentially at their highest because of a surge in certain hormones. And like I said, it happens for 16 to 32 hours max. So it's a short window. And then right after ovulation, we get into the luteal phase. Just think of this as pre-PMS and PMS. You don't really need to know everything else except for energy levels do dip because estrogen dips. I also think it's really important to know that as your estrogen levels drop off, research shares that your mood will shift because estrogen is a key player in creating serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins. So when your estrogen drops off, that mood, if your hormone levels are imbalanced, that mood, she might act up a little bit. It's really when my puppy chewing on his bone, his breathing is like, bro, like chill out, right? That's when we don't want to talk to people. And believe it or not, your brain says, don't talk to people. There's a primal shift in your brain. So we go from being very allocentric most of our cycle to during our luteal phase to being egocentric and thinking about me, myself, and I. And it's literally a hormonal, like, you've ovulated, you might have a baby inside of you. Don't focus on anything besides you. That's what our brain is doing.
Okay. I was going to ask why that's so. So in the chance that we could be pregnant, that's our time to just chill out.
Focus. Okay. Yeah. And I think the easiest way, I like to explain it as 2 for me, 2 for you. So there are 2 weeks and 2 phases that are for the external world and everybody else. That's your follicular phase and your ovulatory phase. There are 2 weeks and basically 2 phases where you're just focusing on me, myself, and I. That's your luteal phase, like the late luteal phase. So like, let's say 3 to 4 days before your period starts, in your entire menstrual phase. And the reason I say go by the weeks is because when you're first learning this, it's just easier to wrap your head around week by week, I'm changing, as opposed to every 5 days, every 3 days. Like that's too much, too soon. So if we're at a 5th grade level with our understanding of our cycle, which I remember being at, and I actually prefer to teach that way because it makes it digestible. There's going to be 2 weeks where I'm very on top of it externally. Okay. And 2 weeks where I'm like, please fuck off. Like respectfully, don't talk to me. And internally, like, what do I need? And when you look at it like that, you can then plan how to eat, how to move, how to work, and how to rest way more efficiently.
That's helpful. I love that you said too, to think of it weekly versus how many days each cycle can be, because that's just far, far too complicated. So we're just looking at 4 weeks, 2 two go together, two go together. And I love the two for me, two for you, because that's a really easy way to remember it. Okay. So talk to me next about food then. Let's go there.
Okay. Yeah. So I will say this, the way that you eat when you are PMSing should be the way that you are eating when you are on your period. And the reason I'm saying that is because basically in the first phase of your cycle and the fourth phase of your cycle, your body is going to need ample amounts of micronutrients and minerals. And just to make sure we cover our bases, friends, protein, healthy fat, fiber at all meals. Okay. Like I'm not going to beat around the bush. I listened to All In with Allie. I know y'all know the importance of eating right. So also I really liked your episode about your like health routine in the spring. It's the reason I bought the Symbiotica stuff, that episode.
Ooh, great. Yeah. I'm so glad. I love Symbiotica. I'm still using it. So I'm glad you like it.
I like it. I was like, I'm not sure. Yeah. It's good. It's very good. But so protein, healthy fat, fiber, every single phase of your cycle without fail. But when you are PMSing, when you are on your period, it's so important to make sure you're getting enough iron, zinc, calcium, selenium, vitamin D, vitamin C, like all of those things. And, you know, I know everybody has different dietary needs, but I think it's just so important that you think of it as my body is releasing, I need to replenish. As it's releasing, I need to be restoring, because leading up to your release, your body is literally shedding your uterine lining. So it's using a lot of energy. And now all of a sudden, your magnesium stores are a lot lower. Your iron stores are going to be lower. So if you can just say, okay, dark leafy greens, red food, because red is associated with my period, red cabbage, those darker colored foods are going to be really helpful. Once you're off your period in your follicular phase and ovulatory phase, there's two things I always tell people. Turn up the complex carbohydrates. Your resting metabolic rate actually increases during ovulation. You are naturally hungrier because your body's like, ooh, I got to make a baby. Okay, let's go. So you want more food. So if you're like, girl, why can't I stop eating? It's because you're about to start ovulating or you are ovulating. Your body needs more energy. Now, I could get into the nuances of eat this, don't eat that, but I find that that's really restrictive for people because you might be plant-based. You might be a carnivore, an herbivore. I think making sure you're getting those protein, healthy fat, fibers, most important, micronutrients and minerals. And then, like I said, that follicular phase, that ovulatory phase, turn up that complex carbohydrate intake. So think your like grains, even your sourdough bread. I know everybody's having like a sourdough moment. I'm not, but like,
not a big sourdough fan, huh?
I like the way it tastes, but you won't catch me making it.
Oh, no. Oh, God,
I've got a bakery right down the road. Like I could walk to the
Publix
bakery.
Is for. No,
yeah, like I'm all set on that. But with that being said, I also think it's really important that you listen to your body. So do you ever get a craving when you're close to your period?
I would say for me, it's sweets.
Right. So a sweets might mean, hey, she needs more carbs. She needs more food. She might need more protein. Let's get real. What is your favorite thing to reach for as your period's getting closer?
It's either something like a literal candy bar. Like if I'm at the store, that will be the time that I will actually grab a candy bar, which I rarely do. And or like at home, something super salty, like crackers or something, and you know what I've been on lately? And actually I just went through this phase in my cycle, and my thing was these salty crackers, cheddar cheese, fig spread, because it's sweet. So I'm getting like the sweet and the salty, and a slice of Granny Smith apple. Oh my God, so good.
That sounds delicious. And guess what? It also just told me.
What?
She needs more sodium. If you're not doing an adrenal cocktail, right, you might need more sodium. You might be needing more potassium.
Okay.
You might be needing more vitamin A.
Is there a mineral? Because I know a lot of people are making, like, another thing that's super hot right now are these mineral cocktails. Is there a brand that you recommend? Because I get confused. Like, can we just put salt in our water? Like, what's the vibe?
So everyone has a different vibe. My vibe is I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
Because it is overwhelming. So in terms of salt, I'm a big fan of the Celtic sea salt, which I'm sure you've probably seen all over social media. But if you can't get your hands on that, a pink Himalayan salt is just as good. When it comes to salt, I'm trying to think. There is a drinkable multivitamin that I take from a brand called Marea Wellness, and the product is called a PMS elixir. I don't deal with PMS. I honestly just drink it because some days I don't feel like taking a capsule. So I will just drink it. It tastes like lemonade and it has such an incredible micronutrient and vitamin profile that that's what I will reach for.
Okay.
That or coconut water.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
a lot of people don't know this, but I think one of the issues we have, especially in the hormonal health space, is overhydration, which is actually possible. So everyone's got their Stanleys, and I'm a stan for my Stanley, okay? But overhydration is when your urine actually looks like water. It's completely like you can see through it. Proper hydration means you need to have urine that looks more like lemonade. So I want you to think about like Minute Maid lemonade. That's what our urine should actually look like. And that's how we know we have the proper mineral balance in our body. And I know I've said a lot about minerals, but it's because minerals really help us create, release, or store our hormones. And so often when we're talking about our cycles and our periods, we only hear people talk about like how to get rid of estrogen dominance or be mindful of, the toxins, the endocrine disruptors, but it's so much deeper than that. I just care about making sure your body is actually in the state that it needs to be in internally so your hormones can balance, because you can take all the supplements under the sun. And if you are overhydrated or if your cells are not able to uptake the nutrients, those supplements are doing nothing for you.
Wow. Okay. You just kind of blew my mind a little bit with the overhydration, because I get excited when I have clear pee. I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. You're drinking. Because my thing used to be I didn't drink enough water. So now I'm just chugging water all the time. And, water has a great PR campaign manager right now. So it's all about it. But okay, so you're saying that we need to be more educated with our water intake, adding more minerals. Otherwise, these supplements that we're all spending a fortune on aren't doing us any good.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times when you're overhydrated, you can actually pee out the nutrients, basically, because your body's not able to uptake the nutrients. Because when you think about it, I'm ingesting a supplement in hopes that it's going to, let's just say a pre and probiotic, right? We've got our daily synbiotic and it's supposed to help my gut. Well, first, can it make it to your gut? Second, is it wrapped in a fat so that it makes it to the gut and then can actually get to the cell? A lot of people don't know this, and I'm not one of those people who's going to sit here and give you the whole biology class. Ladies, I know it feels that way, but I want you to think back to biology and how we're built. Everything starts with your cells. So if your cells aren't healthy and getting what they need, how is the rest of your body getting what it needs?
Very true. So what is and I realize when it comes to supplements, this is, it's so personal and it's so dependent on what somebody's deficiencies are and what their diet's like. But just curious, what is your typical roundup of supplements that you will not go up without? And, what brands? So like you mentioned a probiotic and a symbiotic. Is there a brand that you recommend where they capsulate them properly so they actually live through your gut? Give us all of the juice.
So I'm going to give you Berry's besties because we love those. But I think one of the most important things to say is my supplement routine will change based off of the season, the phase of my cycle that I'm in, and also like whether or not I'm testing something out for a brand. But what I'm going to share is like kind of what I go to without fail. So first and foremost, I love to start my morning with coconut water. That's
Okay.
the first thing. The brand I go to is C2O or Vita Coco, one of those two brands. I don't think I drink anybody else's coconut water.
Okay.
After that, I will reach for the daily. I have them on my desk because that's the only way I know I'm going to grab it. The daily from Semaine Health, and this is a metabolic health support vitamin. What I like about it is that it's actually clinically studied. Supplements are truly an unregulated industry, and I prefer to have supplements that do what they say they are going to do. So I stick with this brand for literally everything across the board, from my pre and probiotic to my daily like multivitamin that's for metabolic health, and specifically because it does support insulin, thyroid, and of course my gut, as well as my like pancreas and liver. And then I also, when it's the day before my period, the first day of my period and the second day of my period, I take their PMS and period support. I can't tell you the last time I had a painful period, mostly because I do preventative stuff.
Yeah.
But I also make sure I won't have one because I take theirs. Now, their PMS and period support vitamin is very similar to think like a Pamprin or a Midol. I personally just don't like Pamprin and Midol. I found that I took way too many of them when I did have a painful period. And now that I have a healthier option, I reach for that. Another thing I love to do is drink tea. I'm a coffee girl. Okay. I love a good latte.
Yeah.
But caffeine constricts your blood vessels. So when you're on your period or getting close to your period, that's what we don't want to do. So I might have a cup of coffee, and then from the rest of the day, I'm drinking something like sweet bay leaf tea,
Okay.
or red raspberry leaf tea. And
Okay. So you don't want to
that
drink
is
the
it.
coffee because it constricts your blood vessels, and that will make it more painful. Got
It
it.
can make it more painful. It can also make it last longer. And here's the thing with coffee, to each their own. I'm not going to sit here and tell you don't have any caffeine, don't have any coffee. I've done that extremity of no gluten, no dairy, no sugar. And that does work, but it's just not sustainable. And I'm at a stage in life where I'm all about simplicity, efficiency, and sustainability. So if it's not doing that, I am not doing it.
For
Just straight up. So with caffeine, I say a cup or two and kill it after that. And that's just because it really is not helping you actually menstruate.
See, I had never heard that before. And I can imagine anybody who's listening that has a painful period. I mean, I'm thinking of a girlfriend of mine who submitted one of the questions, and she was just diagnosed with PMDD.
Oh my goodness.
And she's got her fancy coffee maker, and so I'm wondering if she even knows. I've never heard of that before. So
Oh my
that
God.
right there in and of itself is an amazing tip. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's so great that you have the experience of going from one spectrum to another. You've experienced very painful periods, and now you have it under control. So I understand. And if the answer is it's just a compound effect of all the things that you're doing, that's a great answer. But do you think, could you sum up, okay, I know I was able to decrease the pain of my periods mainly from doing these things.
I'll tell you exactly what I did.
Oh, tell us.
Because the first time I had a pain-free period, I was like,
hold up.
let's try it again. Let's try this again. I didn't believe it. So what I did was I drank red raspberry leaf tea, 8 to 12 ounces every single day. And I drank it hot because that's my human design digestion is hot. I didn't even know that at the time, but it's what I love. Yeah.
Okay. So if your human design is cold, which you can read your chart, and it will tell you on there, your best way to take in,
your food.
Is it food and liquid? Okay.
Yeah.
So it could be cold, but it's dependent on you. Okay. Got it.
Mm-hmm. So I did that, and then I ate in sync with my cycle. Now, the way that I ate in sync with my cycle, I actually had started reading the book Woman Code several years ago. And I looked at this and I was like, this is great, but I promise I'm not getting up making a beet juice smoothie. I'm not the one. I'm not doing it. So
Sounds delicious though, Barry.
Like, well, that's why I teach things so differently than everyone else, because I'm just like, be real. Like,
Yeah.
heading into the office, this is what I'm not about to do. So what I started doing was looking at what nutrients my body was needing and craving throughout different phases. And what I learned about myself is that during the first half of my cycle, so before I ovulate, my body was really craving a lot of warm food and a lot of like fish out of nowhere. So I was like, what the heck is in salmon? Like specifically smoked salmon. What is it? Copper and selenium. So my body was telling me I needed more of those. And of course, the healthy fat. Great. In the second half of my cycle, my body was like, I just want carbs. What's my body telling me? You need more calories. So that's how I ate. Now I have an entire like meal plan and everything with like all of the recipes and stuff that I went through. And it is really extensive, but it's also one of those things that is so specific to like me and my cravings that it almost wouldn't be applicable to other people. But I will say red raspberry leaf tea, she's 100% that girl. She's 100% that girl for me.
And that's easy.
I think I'm the reason it's sold out half of the time, because I've been talking about red raspberry leaf tea since 2019. And then all of a sudden it's trending on TikTok for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I'm like, you're telling me you didn't read one of those articles where I recommended? Yes, you did. I know you did. Like, but like, to be serious, that was what I did. I did that and I just ate in sync with my cycle. And I started looking at food and cravings. Like with my cravings, I was kind of like, what am I needing? So I love a good candy bar. Like I'm a Butterfinger lover through and through. But I know my body doesn't need the Butterfinger. It's probably needing vitamin D, calcium, and of course, my healthy fat. 9 times out of 10, those are the things that my body's needing and what my body is looking for. So if you can just start asking yourself, okay, I want my pumpkin spice latte. What does my body actually want? Like, what's in pumpkin? What's
Guys,
in
your body
cinnamon?
really doesn't need, or it's not craving pumpkin spice.
I'm sorry, but like I had a PSL on Friday of last week, or maybe it was Sunday. And I was like, what is this? It was like so watered down to me. I was just like, I'm just drinking sugar.
Yeah.
Girls, you gotta tell me what the hype is, because like I'm questioning it right now. But your body's looking for maybe cinnamon. So cinnamon is one of those things that can actually decrease inflammation in the body. So maybe what you need to do is start looking for more of those anti-inflammatory foods. And I know everybody wants like a checklist of what to eat and how to eat. I will make sure that I send you a link to a grocery list on Instagram so the girls know what to eat.
Okay. And we'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way it'll be easier for them, because I mean, like I said, like what I eat and the way I eat,
it's going to be different for everybody, right? But what I'm hearing you say too is to tune into your body, pay attention, ask those questions. And you said it best, like your body isn't really craving a Butterfinger. It's craving like what are the ingredients there, besides the, what I'm saying? But yeah, it's being more in tune and paying attention to how you feel. And that's like when I read books like In the Flow, there was another one I read too, and the title isn't coming to me, but they all promote being like tapping into your own intuition. Like, what you need. Know what it is that your body needs. Just you've got to learn how to pay attention to the signs and the cravings and how you're feeling. So besides just cravings, you're talking about, okay, so leading up to our period, we need more zinc, we need more iron because we're about to shed it all out. And then after that, it's more carbs because we have more energy, right? So that's probably like the simplest way to say it. And then past our cravings, is there any other telltale sign that you need something specific in your diet?
I'm going to have to say your symptoms.
Okay.
So a lot of people experience different PMS symptoms. And in case you've never heard this, ladies, your period is a monthly report card about your overall state of health.
Whoa.
Yeah. So one thing that I hear a lot is I'm just going to go through the most common symptoms I hear and I'll tell you what I'm like, okay, this person probably needs this. So if you're a heavy bleeder or a major cramper, what your body is actually needing is more anti-inflammatory foods out the gate and probably more magnesium. Magnesium is a coenzyme in over 300 factors in the body. We all need more magnesium out the gate across the board.
Just period. Okay. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we just do.
Mm-hmm.
If you deal with a lot of bloating, there's a chance that your body is actually needing more potassium, not necessarily more sodium, because sodium causes you to hold weight. So that's something you would want to look at. Migraines. Migraines and headaches are something that I've personally never had to navigate. Like I'm so blessed I never had to. But what that tells me is you need more minerals all around. You're just not getting enough of them. This also applies to my ladies with PMDD. There has been a correlation between that drop in your estrogen, often a drop in your energy, an increase in these emotional things that you may be experiencing, and not enough minerals and micronutrients in your diet. There are way too many micronutrients and minerals for me to name off. But I would highly, highly recommend, if you can get a mineral analysis, get one.
Ooh,
and figure out where you are deficient.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, they test your hair follicles.
Nice. And can your regular doctor do that, or do you recommend going to a functional doctor?
I would recommend a functional doctor, because your regular doctor is going to play the insurance game and then try to refer you out. And like, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Go see somebody that is integrative or functional. Don't waste your time. Okay. Like, it's not worth it. I mean, maybe if you have a really great endocrinologist on hand, they'll help you, but like, I don't know how many people just have them on like speed dial, you know? Let's see. Cramping, bloating, mood swings, fatigue. I think everybody knows fatigue is associated with higher cortisol levels, and being in that overdrive mode. So again, 1, stress less, live more. Thank you. And number 2, magnesium is going to be super helpful. Let me think. I don't think cravings are actually like a symptom. I think it's just people being hungry and not knowing. Like cravings are their own language. So I'm really trying to think. Mood swings, migraines, headaches, that's its own bucket. Heavy bleeding, cramping, bloating. What am I missing? There's so many symptoms. Like
there's
I can't
so many
even.
symptoms. So mood swings, what bucket is that?
I put mood swings with migraines.
Okay.
But also, so the thing about mood is, because mood is so closely associated with your estrogen, you just really need to understand that, yes, you could have an estrogen dominance, but you could also have a progesterone deficiency. So often we hear people say like, estrogen dominance, you need to lower your estrogen, eat a raw carrot salad. Screw that salad and like really pay attention to what's going on, because you can be estrogen dominant just because you don't have enough progesterone, which is a really important hormone for resting and digesting. I always say it's your like relaxation one, and it's going to help you be more cuddly and approachable. Not enough of us are like cuddly and approachable when we're in our luteal phase. And if you notice that about yourself, that's probably a really key sign that you need to increase your progesterone levels. Do a quick Google search of progesterone promoting foods, because I know somebody's going to want to know.
Yes.
Literally click the first link. That's what I did. Like,
perfect.
Click the first link.
That's super helpful. Can I ask you a question about magnesium?
Yeah.
So I know that you can take it through, I'm sure, a few different ways internally, but then also topically. So what do you recommend there? So
I love a magnesium bath.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the Ancient Minerals bath flakes, or like salts, and they're like these, they're really flaky. I put them in my bath and I get my magnesium that way. And then I also like to drink it. So I have Magnesium from Moon Juice, and I like it. I'm not super obsessed with it, but it does help me get good sleep. And I do think it's important that You don't just take like random magnesium supplements and think that it's going to help you with your cramping. For instance, like there's different types of magnesium. And so if you deal with a lot of cramping and you're taking it as a supplement, magnesium biglycinate is the one that they suggest isolated, but if I'm not mistaken, the supplement I have has magnesium L-threonate, which is a whole different thing. And I also have the Symbiotica magnesium. So it's just kind of dealer's choice.
Okay, cool. So do your research there, but it sounds like there's lots of different options.
So many options.
So many options. And this is where it gets so confusing. I mean, just being fully honest, this is where I kind of go off the tracks, because trying to keep up with life in general, and then, okay, am I getting the appropriate minerals for this phase? Am I eating correctly for this phase? Am I, so I love the idea of simplifying it based on the weeks. Like, to me, I can handle that. I can compartmentalize that. That's very easy for me. And let's go back to cycle syncing for our businesses, because I know that we got a lot of questions about that. I imagine this has been a huge game changer for you.
This is what I do.
This is your thing. Yeah. So like, talk to me about like, how far do you go into this for yourself when it comes to like the type of activities? Like, do you have it to where you do just admin type stuff during those 2 internal weeks and then whatever, like just give it to us all?
Into the thick of it. But before I do that, because I feel like maybe people are like, I don't understand the nutrients to food. Let me just give you guys the monthly rundown. Okay. Out the gate, make sure you know what protein you like. Don't listen to anybody else. Do you when it comes to protein. Same thing with healthy fat and fiber. When you're on your period, red food, dark food, that's going to really, really support you. When you are post-period, think light, bright, airy foods. Okay, think your tropical fruits and vegetables. Think in those color tones, okay? So I literally want you to think about being in Cabo. That's the color palette we're going for with our food.
That's helpful.
I feel like it's just easier to think in color sometimes.
For sure, yeah.
And then when you're ovulating, I want you to think Mediterranean vibes. We have a nice Italian summer, okay? Nice so little right? Like I say bruschetta, but I'm pretty sure that's not the way you're supposed to say it.
That's how I say it.
I've heard it like a different way on the show, and I was like, is that how I don't know, but think Mediterranean vibes, because that's a lot of calorically dense things, but also a really great diet. And then as you are in that luteal phase, the closer and closer you get to your period, think red, dark colored foods again. Boom. Okay. That, I feel like if you can get that, you're good to go. Now, let's talk about this workflow, because my program is literally called Workflow, because I love to teach people this. So when it comes to working in sync with your cycle, I do get really into the weeds with it. And that's because that's my job. It is my job to teach you to work smarter, not harder. So like, I'm one of those people, I practice what I preach. But for the average person, this is what I'm going to say. When you're on your period, ideation related things are going to be the best for you. Okay. So just spend time thinking about like brainstorming. Don't take any action yet. Just ideate as much as possible. Okay. When you're in your follicular phase, this is when we're getting into kind of a creation mode. This is when we're like, okay, let me streamline the details of how this launch is going to be, how this program is going to look, the transformation. That's when you get in that mode. When you're ovulating, you're going to be doing execution, like secure your bag, show up every single day. I don't care. Do it. It's going to make life super easy. And then when you're in that luteal phase, especially the late luteal PMS phase, what you're going to do is evaluation. And the reason I say that at a high level is because it's basically what your brain is doing. When you're on your period, there's 25% more connectivity between the right and left hemispheres of your brain. This is your perfect time to create and ideate. Okay. When you get off your period, your brain is kind of still in that interesting phase, but your brain is also kind of like, all right, I got to get ready to communicate. your hippocampus and your amygdala start to grow. So these are your points of connection. And like, ooh, creation, invitation, like, okay. And it pretty much stays like that. Right after ovulation is that switch. Your prefrontal cortex begins to shrink a bit in its activity. Your brain goes from being very allocentric, so think all, to egocentric, me, myself, and I.
Got it.
So that's how we work. Now, I know you can't be in creation mode every single day or not be in execution mode. And I get that. So start looking at your days in that format. So I wake up in the morning, the first 3 hours of my days, ideation. The second 3 hours of my day, after my snack break, of course, this is going to be my creation. The third chunk, that 3 hours, that's going to be execution. The last part of my day, reflection, evaluation. That way I'm working with my body as opposed to against it. And that's my daily. I think that that is like the most efficient way I have ever worked. It's what I teach my clients, whether you are literally in corporate America or you're an entrepreneur. It works. Now, also, you have your giving and receiving phases of your cycle.
Ooh.
So kind of play with it a little bit. You're probably thinking, when should I give? When should I receive?
Yes.
So when you're on your period, you're in receiving mode.
Okay.
Follicular ovulatory phase, giving mode.
Giving. Okay.
Because your energy levels are higher. So you can serve, right? And your brain is also saying, communicate, connect, do it. So you're going to do that. That luteal phase, especially that late luteal phase, please receive. Don't talk to anybody if you don't have to. Like if you just can't turn it on, don't. Now, I'm a well-oiled machine. My period's supposed to start in 2 days. I can turn it on right now and I can turn up because I'm like, this is the main thing on my to-do list today. Outside of that, I'm just doing admin work.
But you're not going to book 8 of these back to back.
No, right. There's no way. You couldn't pay me to do that
totally.
on
a regular day.
That's too much giving in this phase of my cycle. And, you know, I started viewing the cycle in the giving and receiving energy when I decided to change the way that I was living. I just wanted to improve my life. So in order to do so, I changed the way that I was looking at my cycle.
I find this to be very helpful. And I love that you said taking it day by day too, by like ideation, creation, or, you know, whatever. Okay. Ideation. What was the second one?
Ideation, creation, execution, and evaluation.
Okay. It was execution that I couldn't remember. I love that because to me, the idea of taking, for me, like 2 weeks, not, let's say, selling or launching, feels like I'm just taking off work. That to me does not work. So you're saying like this can be made for you. It's more so you to be self-aware enough to know, okay, during these 2 weeks, you're simply just not going to want to be putting yourself out there so damn much. You can get in your stories, you can do a podcast, but you're not going to want to be doing it all day. And it's just, if you want to practice the art of receiving a little bit more, those would be prime times to do it. So the way that I'm thinking about this too is like, what about being more automated during those weeks, right? Like having putting out on your stories graphics instead of your face, sending out the emails, having the post scheduled and ready to go. That way you're not having to be the one to deliver the message and be seen and put out that much energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think it all comes down to what works best for somebody. So what works really well for me is showing up on stories every day when I'm not arguing with Instagram. Currently having a moment where I hate Instagram. Okay. So I just have not been posting on Instagram.
Because we're about to be on our period or something else?
No, I just literally am like, what am I doing here?
Oh,
like really just taking time to like evaluate my relationship with the platform.
Career crisis. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been on TikTok and I'm like, okay, I'm really nurturing a community over there. So the process of building on TikTok versus Instagram, seeing what's working, not working. And like the people rocking with me on Instagram, I know they're going to be there
Mm-hmm.
because most of them are on my email list. So like, it's just like one of those things. But what I've learned for me is I love to constantly create no matter what phase of my cycle I'm in. What I don't love is the analytics and like analysis side of business. What I don't love is the masculine structure that I need and the logistics. That is very difficult for me. So I actually maximize my cycle and the logistics of things based off of that. I do not like to look at numbers. I like to get my PayPal notifications. You got paid. Great. Ask me to give you a P&L and like, who, what?
Yeah.
Isn't that what I pay you to do? Like, I just don't like that
Totally.
stuff.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think you have to find your rhythm and your flow with it, but like, don't force it either. I've seen people try to completely overhaul their calendar and then just be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're used to going and doing it a certain way your whole life, and then you go from like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off type vibe, or what a lot of, that big extreme, that's going to ease into it is what we're trying to say.
Yeah. I tell people to pace themselves. It's actually a method I teach, and I'm going to say what I said in terms of ideation, creation, all that in a different way. Plan, act, create, execute. Plan, act, create, evaluate. You get to decide how that's going to look for you. But I do launch in sync with my cycle when I have something major and new. That's very different. Aside from that, because I live so aligned with my cycle, I do this in my sleep. But if I only launched once a quarter, I promise you, I would be launching in sync with my cycle every single time. And that's because it's a lot of energy management. Now, with my life looking so different now than it did several years ago, with us having kids 50% of the time, I have to be more astute and like really think about how I'm going to do things. They literally made I started dating my boyfriend about 1.5 years ago, and he's got 2 little ones, and they turned my world upside down. They were like, "You are not taking a nap on your period. I need help. Someone needs to change my diaper." And I'm like, oh,
hold up.
Whoa,
you don't do that yourself? What?
But mind you, this is all new for me. So I had to learn really quick how to get into it. And what I learned is once you can kind of understand the 2 weeks of high energy, 2 weeks of low energy, you can then effectively work. Okay. That's why I say a lot of people overcomplicate it. But if you come back to the 2 for me, 2 for you, that can teach you how to work.
I love that.
Yes, I can teach you how to be a better teacher. Yes, I can teach you how to be a better coach. But really, if you can just master 2 for me, 2 for you, especially when you have kids, y'all that have kids 100% of the time, I love y'all.
Pray for me.
Because
let me tell you something. They're 4 for me, none for you.
But that was such a shock for me. And that's what caused me to look at cycle syncing and be like, that doesn't work for me. I have to sync with my cycle, and I have to simply sync. I love cycle syncing, don't get me wrong, but I had to create something that worked for me in my life. And so that's now what I teach people, 2 and 2, you're good.
Keep it simple.
Life is complicated enough. Yeah. Let's not overcomplicate this.
No, that's so refreshing to me because, I would agree with you. I think In the Flow, that book is fantastic, but I did walk away whoa. Okay, this was so much information. What do I do? So you just made this so much easier and more digestible. So I appreciate that. Let's shift gears from the cycle syncing. I have some questions. Well, we have audience questions, but me first. I want to ask my questions.
Yeah.
So is there an app? I assume you use an app to track your period. I'm sure you've tested them all. What is your favorite app to track your cycle?
It's called Femometer. Femometer.
Femometer.
Here's why I like that.
Okay.
Femometer. So think thermometer, but femometer.
Ooh,
that's how... I love this app for so many different reasons, but the main reason being you can learn more about what's happening with your body. So if you've been listening to me talk and been like, girl, too much, too much. And I get that. Like, I am team too much. I'm over the top. I get it. You can go to this app. In the free version, they give you a pretty decent amount of information, but in the paid version, which I think is like 35, 40 bucks, you can learn everything in like 2-minute increments, bite-sized pieces, and see what else is going on and how to support your body. It's just a great app. I've used it for 3, going on 4 years now. Never once has it messed me up.
Love it.
It's been overly accurate.
Okay. So thermometer, I will look it up and I will put that in the show notes as well. What about our friends listening that deal with irregular periods? Is this something that it just is what it is? Can we fix it?
I mean, yeah, both. Okay. Like, I don't want to lie. So with irregular cycles, yes, it is what it is, but it's also like fixable. Now, when it comes to the irregularity, there's different types of irregularity that people experience. So maybe you are somebody who trains a lot, like you're super active. That can often cause the body to become irregular, cause your cycle to be irregular. So I'd encourage you to break your workouts up. So on your period, lower intensity, active recovery, follicular, ovulatory phase, strength, power, resistance-based training is going to be really, really helpful. And then when you're in that luteal phase, lower intensity, active recovery. Again, we're back to the 2 weeks of high, 2 weeks of low. Constantly mirroring that is going to support you. So if your cycle is irregular because you're overtraining and undernourishing, that is what you do. And also eat more food. Now, if your cycle is irregular because you have PCOS, that's a whole different can of worms. And the best thing I can tell you with your PCOS is to kind of identify which type of PCOS. There are 4 different types. So you have to identify which kind that you have. And then from there, figure out the best course of action. Not if you have insulin resistant based PCOS, you don't necessarily need to do what somebody who has adrenal PCOS does. So do a little bit of research there. I know that might not have been helpful, but it's the truth anyhow. Okay, somebody's going to tell it.
It's perfect.
And then for my postpartum ladies, listen, y'all got to stay on my DMs because y'all are real grown. And listen, I don't have my own kids yet, right? Like, these are my boyfriend's kids that we have. I don't have my own kids. So I haven't experienced that yet. And I can only help you so much in the sense of, like, you know, when someone knows how to stay in their lane, I know how to stay in my lane and say postpartum is something that I have not navigated. And the research says is not always helpful because research is weird these days. People have different sciences, but what I will say is wait until you have your first period postpartum. That is the best thing you can do. And the reason that's the best thing you can do is because then you can confirm that you've ovulated. Until you stop breastfeeding, if you're not breastfeeding, if you're formula feeding, just wait and let your body readjust. Your body is using different types of estrogen. It's also using prolactin. If you are breastfeeding, prolactin suppresses your estrogen. So just give yourself grace and let your body do what it needs to do. Okay. Listen, you just popped out a whole human. Just chill. Like, I say that with love,
it's not
but
going to be
just
normal
chill
for a minute. Yeah.
And I think also one of the things that's super helpful is tracking your biomarkers, cervical mucus, cervix placement, and basal body temperature. That way you can kind of have an idea. Usually just prior to ovulation, your basal body temperature will drop. And then once you've ovulated, it will spike a little bit and you'll be able to see that. When you're doing your cervical mucus, you're looking for something that looks like a raw egg white. That's how you can confirm you've ovulated. But that one's a little bit more dicey when it's postpartum time. It just is. Just, you know, and then checking your cervix placement. If you've never felt your cervix, when you ovulate, it'll usually feel like your Cupid's bow. And when you're not ovulating, it'll feel like the tip of your nose. That's a crash course, but that's all stuff that can help you.
And actually, I was stalking you before this, and you have a diagram on your Instagram, not too far down, right? Where it's like you can see how far back it is. I was like, oh, who knew?
We call that the knuckle test. So when I teach fertility awareness, what I like to teach people is you're going to check your cervix placement because it is a way to get feedback about where you're at in your cycle. The closer you are to ovulating, the further in your finger will actually go. The further away you are from ovulating, the lower your finger will be because your cervix is lower. So when you're close to ovulating, your cervix is higher. It's soft, high, open, and wet. We call it a show. Okay. And then when you're further away from ovulating, it's going to be low and pretty hard.
Okay.
So
helpful.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful. Okay. So you guys go check out that diagram because I had no idea. I was like, what is going on there? Okay, cool. Next question that I have for you. Stance on birth control.
Trash.
Okay.
Next question.
Why? I mean, I already knew that, but I would love to hear an expert's opinion.
So my thing with birth control is, and I say this with love, I'm here to inform you, not to offend you. Okay. So if I do trigger you, dig into why you're so triggered. Mm-hmm. Okay. But also, like, here's where I'm coming from. There are 1.4 million women in America alone who are on hormonal birth control for reasons other than controlling birth. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a solution. It's not the only solution. It is a Band-Aid. And that's why I say it's trash. Not only that, but the World Health Organization has classified the combination pill a known carcinogen. Why are we prescribing things that are literally carcinogens to people and then being like, I don't know
Back
why
to my
you
earlier
have,
comment.
like, another reason I call it trash is because it can disrupt other medications. And a lot of people don't know that, right? So we're going to, our doctors, and nothing against doctors. I really do respect them, the ones that are helping, yes. But also like the rest of y'all who are just getting checks. We can have some words, and I stand 10 toes down on that one. But you have to be your best advocate. And hormonal birth control is also stopping your body from doing what it needs to do and preventing the communication between your brain and your ovaries. So a lot of people don't know your cycle starts in your brain. There's like an actual chemical reaction that happens. A release of GnRH is what triggers our body to start menstruating. And so many people don't know that. Okay. And I just think it's so bizarre that, we are trying to help people, and at the same time, we don't know the side effects. And the side effects, it's an uncontrolled science experiment. And like, I have lived through that. I think we all have, in so many different ways. But like with birth control, like, it's a personal thing. And as a woman, I just can't be like, this is the best thing for you.
Right. And we don't want to be stopping our period. Like, our period's a good thing. And that's why I wanted to bring you on here to help us to optimize our energy and to be friendly. And I love your metaphor of like your relationship with your period. If it's toxic right now, how can we clean it up? Because we're not trying to get rid of it. This is what keeps our body on track. And I don't know, just normal. Like this is how we were made. So yeah. What's the thing that stops your period for like 5 or 6 years, the IUD?
So, but that's like the crazy part. Okay. So how does one say this?
Just say it.
Birth control could never. Okay. So what we're sold is the fact that birth control can help us in so many ways. And like I said, like you said, what's your opinion? Trash. Like that is my opinion. There's nothing else to say really, but my qualms with it comes down to like IUDs, the shot and the ring and the implant, progestin based birth control. But doctors will say it's progesterone based birth control. No, it is not. It is progestin, not progesterone. So progesterone, I want you to think of your favorite female music artists, okay?
Okay.
And then I want you to think about the imitator.
Like the
Okay.
Shein version. So it's the Shein version
Literally.
of progesterone.
Literally, that's what progestin is. You know, Shein, progestin.
Yeah.
Like, it's fake, it's synthetic, it's toxic. And I think why it's just such a bad idea is because it is so toxic. And then people are on it for an extended amount of times. Then they're gaining this weight. Then they're feeling out of control of their bodies. Then they're deciding like, oh, I don't like the person I'm with anymore, because you're literally attracted to different people. Like, there's a book called This Is Your Brain on Birth Control. You're attracted to different pheromones.
That's insane.
And people are like, why don't I like this person now that I'm not on birth control anymore?
That's insane.
There's been a correlation between the increase in birth control and the increase in divorce.
Oh.
I'm not saying it's 100% true, but I mean, I can connect some dots.
And then what about hormone-free birth control?
That's what I do. So like, I do something called the symptothermal method. This is where I'm tracking my basal body temperature, my cervical mucus, and my cervix placement. Now, not to be confused with the copper IUD, because the copper IUD is hormone free. It's technically non-hormonal, but it's also taking metal, a toxic heavy metal, arguably, and inserting it into your body. And then you're like wondering why your body is tripping, because it's something in there that shouldn't be in there. If it's, the body will literally be like, if it is foreign, get it out of me.
Yeah. Okay. Helpful. I figured that was probably your stance, but just wanted to talk about that real quick. And then my last question for you, and this is a little bit of a fear-based question, but, and then we'll get to audience questions, but
for sure,
I'm witnessing people in my world going through menopause and navigating menopause. And it has got me so freaked out. And I don't even know if I should be freaked out, but I'm just wondering, like, is there a way to or postpone menopause? Do we even want to do that? Like, is there a way to not have to go through it at all?
Yeah. So remember when I told you I like to stay in my lane? Menopause is one of those things. And here's why. Because if you have not gone through menopause, like, whenever I comment on it, people want to like choke slam me, and I'm like, well, a little aggressive
because they're menopausal.
Yeah. So here's what is 100% true about menopause. No matter what anybody says, nobody wants to hear this, but it's the truth anyhow. Menopause is a single event. It happens one day, one time. The symptoms leading up to it, now that's a different story. But technically speaking, it is a one-time only event. Now, the hot flashes, because that's what I hear about the most. All of that. One of the most natural homeopathic things you can do is get your hands on some wild yam cream and start applying it to like topically to the inside of your arm. It can be really helpful. And you would do about like a knuckle's worth, maybe 2 knuckles, and start applying it. This can help that transition into menopause, supposedly. Now listen, I'm 29.
You
Don't
said
come
wild
for me.
yam cream?
Yeah, wild yam cream.
Okay. So if somebody...
I'll send you
a
a video of it, because there's this woman named Barbara O'Neill. She is like everything I aspire to be one day, except like I got a little bit more swag than her. But I love how she is as like an educator. Like, she's just so phenomenal. She talks about it. I will try to pull the video where she talks about that in relation to menopause, because I think people would just like really appreciate that. But menopause is a difference in estrogen. So we're going from using E2 to using E1, which is, there's like estrone, estradiol, and then your 2 different estrogens for pregnancy, which I know nothing nothing about, and everyone says like all estrogen's the same. No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. Like I'll stay in my lane, but Anna's wild yam cream or just wild yam cream is what's usually recommended.
Okay. So we'll look into that too. Cool. Just a thought. Okay. Questions from audience. There's a few of them. These are really good.
Okay.
So, and some of these we might have, let's see. This one was, how can we set a good practice in business in the week before our period when hormones and emotions are running wild? So that would be then to like just slow it down a bit.
Slow it down, but also remember like business is not just about like, so when people tell me they're emotional, I'm like, oh, with business, I say, oh, in general, I like emotions, but with business, I'm like, feelings are not facts. Okay. We need to reel it in and remain like calm, cool, and professional.
Mm-hmm.
I think also communicating to your team, if you have a team, where you're at in your cycle. That's something when I had a lot of people that I was working with, I knew when everybody's periods were happening. So I knew how to help lead.
Okay.
Now it's a little bit different because it's like me and one other person. So it's just kind of like, this is what we're doing. Okay, great. And like, it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working with multiple people, especially a lot of women, knowing where everybody is in their cycle, that way you can kind of offload and delegate. Do it, delete it, or delegate it. That's my like approach to things, and I think it's super helpful.
Okay. Love that. Do it, delete it, delegate it, communicate. Can stress make you completely skip a period?
Yes. So, fun fact, I was under a lot of stress at the end of last year. And my period has been regular for God knows how long, probably the last 8 years or so, since I haven't really been training at a high level. I didn't have a period for 45 days. And I was like, how's the period princess not having her period?
Yeah.
I was so stressed out, like just trying to figure out life and business and like all of these things. Thankfully, I knew what to do to get my cycle back, but like I knew how stressed I was. So yes, stress can completely change your cycle. Also think it's important to note that what's happening with your period today is a result of what was going on in life 3 months ago.
Oh.
Because it takes the egg about 100 days to develop, 90 to 100 days to develop.
That's helpful. Okay. Because you might be like, what the hell? I'm not stressed anymore. But if you were a couple of months ago, then that's okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So there you go. There's the answer on that one.
Okay. Helpful. Next question. So this is our PMDD question. I was just diagnosed with PMDD, need advice on how to get through that bad week.
Okay. So I actually just did a TikTok video, and I'm actually going to pull up the notes section on my phone really quick because I did an entire like notes, like holistic tips for PMDD.
Oh, okay.
I will make sure you can share that.
So
this is like really right off my phone, and I want to be accurate.
Yeah.
So adequate protein intake, and that's because there is an amino acid called tryptophan that can help increase your serotonin production, and that's super important. Healthy fat, because it helps our brain more. Food, salmon, nuts, seeds, poultry, eggs, and soy. There's a tea that I really like called Cassia alata that can help, and that's mostly helping the gut, but it can also help the brain as well, and it's known for like kind of calming down your anxiety and things. And then your minerals, your B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium, and zinc.
Okay.
And with PMDD, I'm very, very particular how I talk about it because everyone experiences it so differently. But the information I kind of just shared is literally the most cohesive and concrete information I could find that actually had research backing it. PMDD is still fairly new to Western medicine, and you know, the first treatment that they give is either hormonal birth control or is it Zoloft? Is that? I don't, there's something for like managing depression and like whatever they're are treating people with for that, they give to people with PMDD, and that may not always work for people. So yeah.
Okay. Is PMDD curable, reversible?
I'm
not sure.
It's one of those things where, you know how they talk about you have to like live with a condition? That is how PMDD is. Now, I am from the camp of like, if you can master your mind, you can master your life.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost don't want to apply that to PMDD because I don't want to like dismiss what somebody's dealing
Totally.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, I don't want to be like dismissive about it, but I think you can overcome anything.
I agree. And but I think too, you have to know what to do, and like you have to know how to do the right things. Because if you're eating improperly, or you're not getting the right supplements or the right minerals or all the things that we talked about, and your body is so out of whack and you're in that much pain, then you're not going to be able to get in the right mindset that this thing is reversible. So I love that you gave those tips, because if you're able to apply those things and you see any ounce of support or improvement of your condition, then we can start working on the mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the drinkable multivitamin I recommended, the PMS Elixir, the founder of that company, she actually has PMDD.
Okay.
So when she was formulating that, she was very adamant about making sure it helped people who had PMDD. There's also a girl on Instagram. I believe her handle is the PMDD nutritionist. She's also a really, really great resource.
And what's the brand of the drinkable multivitamin?
Maria Wellness.
Maria Wellness. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think it's literally, you can Google PMS Elixir and it might be like one of the first ones. It's really cute. It's like yellow and pink.
Oh, cool.
The branding. So there you go.
There you go. Okay. Next question. If I'm on birth control, do I still go through the same energy cycles as somebody not on birth control?
No, it stops the communication between your brain and your ovaries, right? So you're not actually menstruating in any way. You're not ovulating. But I think it is so important that you still build the right habits to support your body, even on birth control. So if you're having a withdrawal bleed, which is usually the period associated with birth control, treat that like your menstrual phase and support your body by eating those red foods, making sure you're getting that protein, healthy fat, and fiber. Also, if you are on birth control, please make sure you are taking a pre and probiotic, and make sure you're either taking a really great multivitamin or even a prenatal. I know you're like, girl, I'm trying to control birth. So it's like, but hormonal birth control is known for depleting the body of 7 essential nutrients, and a really great multivitamin or a prenatal has the nutrients you need and then some, which is why the prenatal is recommended, is because it's like you want double the nutrients, knowing that your body's not getting what it needs.
Okay, perfect. Next question. Curious about using herbal medicine. That was the question.
Yes.
Yes.
I love it.
Do it. Okay. And we've kind of already talked about the supplements. So, okay.
Yeah.
We can move on. How to manage hormones when breastfeeding and finally getting your period back. I know this is out of your lane.
So, like I did kind of mention a little bit, but really focusing on the breastfeeding part and not necessarily the period part, I think is going to be the most important. And that's coming from someone who respects moms and can't wait to be a mother one day. I just think it's so important that you're focusing on nourishing that child. So taking things like milk thistle is going to be really supportive. And that helps increase the prolactin in your lactation abilities, but also making sure that you're taking care of your physical body and like health, and allowing your body permission to just recover the way. Like, don't do too much extra intervention. Like, it's, if your child is under 2 years old, let your body do what it needs to do.
Okay. Yeah, because that's something that I dealt with too in this past time. Like, I feel like once I'm still nursing, but I got my period back a couple of months ago and my hormones were whacked. I mean, I was a freaking basket case for a little bit there. And yeah, the question that I had was like, is there anything that we can do? Or it's just like ride the wave, your body's doing what it's supposed to do?
So you can ride the wave, and like, I'm definitely like ride that wave, but also it could be worth supporting your liver a little bit more. Now, I'm not 100% sure because I don't look off. I haven't been pregnant yet, so I refuse to do extra research about
I don't
pregnancy
blame you.
and like
That's a
postpartum.
whole
Like
ass
I'm
thing.
like I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. However, what I could imagine doing that would be helpful would be supporting your liver, because now we're getting rid of some of those hormones that were in your body, and we have to like get it out of the body so it can kind of rebalance and recalibrate. So anything you can do to really support your liver is going to be helpful.
Okay, perfect. And then last question. She said, my period after having kids, there's no other way to say this, is violent. What would be your opinion on best non-hormonal way to deal?
Lifestyle changes. So I want to share with you all my 3 philosophies for like living life in really hormonal health. Stress less and live more. I know you don't want to hear it. And I know with kids, it's like, bro, mind you, we have them 50% of the time. So I know life with kids is not, stress is like synonymous. I get it. But hear me out for a second. You get to set the tone and control the energy. And the reason we're trying to stress less and live more is to downregulate your nervous system, to get your adrenals in check. And so your cortisol isn't constantly pumping out. So is it really that deep or no? Okay. Like that's one of the things I like to challenge people to think about. Second, add rather than subtract. So often we're focusing on taking things away when it comes to our lifestyle. And I'm actually all about adding the right things in. So, you know, whether you like to have a good espresso martini, you know, they'll tell you don't drink alcohol on your period. I know why they say that, but guess what? I want an espresso martini, so I'm going to enjoy that, Miss Ma'am. And I'm also going to support my body with activated charcoal and coconut water so that one, the coconut water can balance the electrolytes out. The activated charcoal can actually help remove the toxins, and I'm golden, right? So figure out how you can add rather than take away in life, especially when it comes to your hormones. And then I like to approach things from like a clean Eden perspective. It's a little bit of a play on words, Garden of Eden, but also like clean eating, right? If it wasn't in the Garden of Eden, I may not touch it.
Okay.
Like the lab grown meats that the kids came out with. What y'all doing? What is that? I'm not, no ma'am.
Listen, it doesn't taste good either.
Like, I have a lot of questions, but I think that can help, especially when your period is violent. Because often, especially after kids, there's so many variables with the hormones that just kind of simplifying and being like, okay, I'm not going to even stress out right now. Okay, you're having a meltdown. You need a nap. Okay, what do I need? Like, it's almost like having to compartmentalize. Yeah. It's going to support you. It's going to downregulate your nervous system. It's going to help get your cortisol in check, your estrogen in check. And then hopefully you'll be like golden. Again, back to the liver. Supporting your liver is one of the most important things to do when it comes to your menstrual cycle across the board.
I will say, when we started cleaning up our diets, which I'll say probably like mid-20s is a little bit later, probably when I got with Chris, because he like cares. And now I do, but at the time, you know, you're in 20s and you're just, I was out there surviving. So I'm eating like all of the trash and just trying to save money. But when I cleaned up my diet and we eat so many more, mostly whole foods and now organic. And I realized like everybody's on a different, you know, you got to do the best that you can. But when I did that, you can set a clock to my periods. And I mean, they were like pretty normal before, and they weren't like, I've been pretty lucky to have manageable, non-painful periods, but I would say they've gotten even more like way more predictable, way more manageable, not so crazy. So I do, of course, I'm not going to say, I think there's something that, of course, there's something to your diet and your body in general, including your cycle. So I love that advice. Thank you.
I mean, my periods were violent. Missing period, heavy bleeding so heavy that I used to bleed through my panties and through my jeans. Yeah. Okay. Like heavy bleeding. Now my period is 4 days long. I have absolutely no pain. And like it doesn't stop me from living my life.
Yeah.
I have a period and a life. So the reason I come back to nutrition so often is because that is where you can see some of the biggest changes the fastest without the cost of everything else. So even if you can't afford certain supplements right now, it's just not in the budget, that's fine.
Yeah.
Start with your food. Food first, supplements second is what I always say, because like literally the way the world was designed, God designed like the fruit and vegetable for our food and like leaves and herbs for our healing. And I stand by that through and through. And it's like biblical. And like, I didn't even know it for the longest time. And then I came across scripture and I was like, oh, huh.
We overcomplicate it. Like it can be so simple. And I realize like some people just have way different circumstances and it is a lot more complicated. And if you have PMDD or endometriosis, that's different. But yeah, I think for a lot of us who you just have more painful periods or heavier or whatever, like check the diet. There's something there for sure.
Yeah.
This has been very enlightening, very helpful. Where can the people find you?
Oh, gosh.
You're all over the place.
You can find me where the people are. So I am pretty much literally everywhere. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok at Berrion Berry. You can find me online at www.berrionberry.com, or maybe by the time this is live, Berry Boost, which is like a whole thing will be live. It's BERRI Boost, as in like boostyourhealth.com. Like, I don't know how else to say that. That domain will probably route you to my website, but that's where you can find me. I mean, it depends on the mood that I'm in. I'm in an interesting season of life, but you can find me on TikTok for sure.
Okay.
At least once a day.
Go to TikTok first is what we're hearing. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all of this with us. I have so many things that we'll be linking, and I'll point everybody in your direction. And you do offer support like coaching if somebody has a specific issue or something and they want to get it in check via, for their period or fertility. You can support them too, more like one-on-one.
Just go to my website and everything you need is going to be over there, because I take 4 clients a month. I literally have changed my entire work life based off of my cycle, 4 clients a month. But if you're like, I don't really want to work one-on-one, I like to learn on my own. I have courses, I have ebooks, like everything you need is on the website. And your content. I mean, there's just so much there. There's so much content. You do such an amazing job, and it's so good too. It's like a page that you can just scroll and you actually are enjoying learning. So go check out the TikTok and the Instagram. Berry, you're a queen. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll have to have you back sometime. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.